Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We are so often defined by the biggest, most obvious thing we do, right?
Yeah.
The thing that puts us on the most magazine covers.
And the highest box office charts.
Exactly. And for our deep dive today, we are talking about an actor who has spent, what, well over a decade?
Oh, at least.
Being defined almost religiously by a single identity. Christopher Robert Evans. Or as the entire world knows it.
Captain America.
And relying solely on that monolithic image, that perfect, altruistic hero, it fundamentally misses the point, doesn't it?
It misses everything. It misses the rich, the surprising, and I think the often contradictory texture of his entire professional life.
Right.
Our mission here is to move far beyond the shield. We're exploring the story of a performer who, at his core, really seems to be a restless character actor.
An artist, yeah.
An artist who is, willingly or maybe unwillingly trapped inside the largest global film franchise in history.
It's such a compelling tension. I mean, our stack of sources for this deep dive lets us trace his surprising depth from this Massachusetts theater kid who was hungry for any job.
And he got some of them, including the ones he later called terrible.
Right, exactly. All the way to his ventures into directing, the acclaimed stage work, and maybe most importantly, his deeply held political activism and his personal philosophies.
Philosophies that run, diametrically opposed to the demands of Hollywood stardom. And to really understand the scope of the cage this identity built, you have to start with the staggering financial reality.
Oh, yeah.
How do we define success? For Evans, it's not just cultural ubiquity, it's financial dominance on a scale very few actors ever achieve.
So what's the number?
The key fact that anchors this entire deep dive, and it is stunning, is this. His films as a leading actor have collectively grossed an immense $11.4 billion worldwide.
Wow, $11.4 billion. That figure isn't just a number, is it? It's a career structure. It's a brand. When you anchor a franchise that is responsible for that level of global commerce, every single choice you make after that.
The low-budget passion projects, the experimental dramas.
The stage roles, yeah.
Yeah.
They all become possible because of the monumental weight. And, let's be honest, the financial security of that one brand identity.
Exactly. So this deep dive is tracing the journey of a man who needed therapy just to accept the biggest job of his life. A man who built his early career on self-admittedly awful teen comedies.
Which is amazing.
And who now, after achieving this impossible global fame, is pivoting his attention toward fighting political misinformation and promoting Eastern philosophical concepts of, self-effacement.
It's a study in strategic pivots, isn't it?
It is. It's about embracing duality and navigating that profound tension between a global ego and, finding personal peace.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. We need to understand the foundation of this persona.
Let's do it.
Christopher Robert Evans was born on June 13, 1981, in Boston, Massachusetts. But he grew up just outside the city in Sudbury. Right. So as of December 2025, when we're talking, he's 44 years old.
And he has a career that already spans almost 3 decades, which is just remarkable when you think about it.
It really is.
That background is absolutely essential to understanding him. This is not the story of a second-generation Hollywood child.
Not at all.
This is a story that's firmly rooted in New England structure, New England values. The family he came from valued both the arts and, I think, critically, public service.
And that explains so much about his later career choices.
Everything.
So the arts were immediately accessible through his mother. His mom, Lisa Capuano, has been the artistic director at the Concord Youth Theater since 1998.
Right.
So having a mother who is directly involved in the nuts and bolts of performance and art creation, that must have normalized acting as a legitimate career path for him.
For sure. It wasn't some distant, abstract dream. It was what his mom did for a living.
Right.
And then his father, Bob, a dentist, provided that grounded stability. It allows the artistic pursuits to flourish,
And the family structure itself, he has 2 sisters, Carly and Shauna, and a brother, who is also an actor, Scott Evans. It points to this really tight-knit, mutually supportive unit.
Mm-hmm. And the heritage is interesting, too. He's of Irish and Italian descent on his mother's side, Irish on his father's, and they were raised Catholic. That strong cultural foundation, you can see it in his recognizable, sort of approachable demeanor.
But the influence of public service, This is arguably the most surprising early detail to me.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle.
His uncle, Mike Capuano, was a heavyweight Massachusetts politician.
A real heavyweight. He was the mayor of Somerville for nearly a decade.
And then he spent 20 years representing the district in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah.
From 1999 to 2019.
That is a deep, deep political pedigree. Evans didn't just grow up adjacent to politics. He grew up inside a family where civic engagement, policy debate, public accountability.
It was just dinner table conversation.
Exactly, it was normal. That connection inevitably informs his later very public political activism and his commitment to his website, a starting point.
It's almost inevitable, right? A political family lineage coupled with a performance background.
It results in a celebrity who feels compelled to use his voice. You can't escape that.
So let's focus on those performance roots. They started in earnest with musical theater. He attended acting camp and showed this early enthusiasm, and he landed the role of Randolph McAfee in the musical Bye Bye Birdie.
It was an instant connection for him. He talked about those early intimate experiences, performing in front of relatives during Christmases.
Yeah.
And he said it felt instantly like home.
Wow.
That phrasing is so important. It implies that performing wasn't some stressful external pursuit for him. It was comfortable, natural, validating.
A core comfort zone.
Exactly. And that's the comfort zone that would later draw him back to the stability of stage work, even after years and years of global film fame.
And he took that comfort zone and he professionalized it fast. This wasn't a casual hobby.
No, he was serious.
He spent the entire summer before his senior year of high school in New York City. He was taking classes at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute.
This is a deliberate, focused, pre-professional immersion in the craft before he even has his high school diploma.
It shows the intent. He graduated from Lincoln-Sudbury Regional High School in 1999, fully committed to making this career work.
And speaking of high school, the source mentions a fascinating side note.
Oh.
He was a schoolmate of Jeremy Strong.
No way. From Succession.
The one and only. It's just a fascinating sort of...
The one that really brings home the early hustle was in 1999. He modeled as Tyler.
Tyler.
For Hasbro's electronic phone special edition of the Mystery Date board game.
I mean, can you even imagine? He is literally the guy whose face you are hoping appears when you pick up the little plastic phone.
It's the definition of a low-stakes, incredibly random modeling job. It's such a wonderfully humble, slightly awkward, and completely relatable entry point.
It is.
For someone who would become a global action star defined by this chiseled, perfect image, it instantly humanizes the billion-dollar man.
It absolutely does. It proves that the image of the perfect hero was hard-won. It was built on temporary jobs that were purely about making rent and getting his face, any face, in front of casting directors.
So once he had the diploma and he'd finished his illustrious stint as Tyler,
yes,
the mission was clear. Moved to Los Angeles. In September 2000, he made the move, and he landed at the infamous Oakwood Apartments in Toluca Lake.
The Oakwood Apartments. A legendary incubator for young Hollywood talent.
A rite of passage, almost.
For sure. And the source notes that it was just full of aspiring, often desperate young actors. And Evans, reflecting honestly on that period, described making strange connections with a lot of thirsty people.
But he added something crucial.
He did. He immediately clarified, I was one of the thirsty people too.
That is such a vital piece of context.
Yeah.
It undercuts any sense of him being this reluctant star who just fell into it.
No, he was hungry. He was actively participating in that intense competitive environment of early 2000s LA. He was hustling for any role that would pay the bills and get him on screen.
And that hustle immediately set the stage for the roles he took, which were, let's be honest, mostly forgettable, but necessary training grounds.
Absolutely. His screen debut came that year in a television film called The Newcomers, and that was followed quickly by a lead role in an 8-episode TV series called Opposite Sex.
These were crucial steps, putting him in front of the camera, teaching him the mechanics of being on a set.
Then came the first step into genre work, specifically teen comedies. In 2001, he starred in the parody, Not Another Teen Movie. Oh, I remember that one. He played the high school footballer.
Yep. And while it was critically panned, it was a raunchy parody. After all, it was a commercial success. It grossed $66 million worldwide.
So it got his face into multiplexes. It put him on the map.
It did. But the genre exploration continued, and it led to a pretty big critical stumble in 2004 with The Perfect Score.
The teen heist comedy about stealing SAT answers.
That's the one. The execution was poor, and the film was critically annihilated. One specific critique called his performance bland and highlighted the total lack of cast chemistry.
Ouch.
Yeah. And this period of artistic disappointment led to Evans's own retrospective honesty. He later just summarized some of these early films as really terrible.
It's so important to note how quickly he tried to pivot away from those bland teen roles, though.
He did.
In 2004, he found a necessary career boost with the action thriller Cellular, where he was opposite established stars like Kim Basinger and Jason Statham.
That film, though it was a genre piece, was a critical turning point because reviewers finally recognized his star potential.
Slant Magazine's review noted that Evans proved himself a sufficiently charismatic leading man.
And that recognition, that he could carry a fast-paced action narrative with charisma, that was the ticket he needed, wasn't it?
It was everything. He had found his action footing, which immediately propelled him toward a much, much larger commitment.
Which brings us to his first big comic book chapter, Fantastic Four. In 2005, he was cast as the Human Torch, Johnny Storm.
And he reprised the role in the 2007 sequel, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
The reception of these films it's mixed, but financially they were significant.
Oh, they were clear commercial successes. They established him as a bankable star, and even if the films themselves weren't universally loved, his specific performance stood out.
He had that energy.
Totally. Variety praised his charismatic breakout performance in the first film. He brought this kinetic energy and humor that just elevated the material. The sequel was even considered a significant improvement over the original.
But the seeds of his later career anxiety, they were already being sown right here. What's absolutely critical for understanding his reluctance to take on Captain America later is his dissatisfaction with these earlier superhero films.
He reflected years later that the Fantastic Four films left him a little uneasy. And his reason was because the movies weren't exactly the way I'd envisioned them.
That is a huge statement. It reveals an early underlying desire for greater material depth and a clear directorial vision.
Even as he was achieving commercial success, he was successful, but he was creatively unfulfilled by that standard early 2000s superhero machine.
And that creative frustration, it manifested in some truly experimental and often dark choices he made mid-decade. It's almost like he was trying to prove his range outside of genre cinema.
He really was. Let's look at 2005's London. It was a romantic drama where he played a drug user dealing with a relationship breakdown.
A deliberate attempt to shock the system, take on a gritty role.
And unfortunately, the film completely failed to connect. It earned overwhelmingly negative reviews. Variety described it as noxious.
And the esteemed critic Roger Ebert, he just dismissed it as dreck.
Dreck. I mean, the lesson here isn't just that he chose bad projects, but that he was desperate to stretch his acting muscles, even if it meant risking critical failure.
But he wasn't deterred from working with auteurs. In 2007, he made the critically favored sci-fi thriller Sunshine, directed by the visionary Danny Boyle.
A huge critical pivot. He was working with a director famous for demanding serious, thoughtful performances.
And this was a high-concept film about a team of astronauts trained to reignite the dying sun.
Ebert praised the cast for playing professional astronaut scientists and not action movie heroes. Sunshine showed Hollywood that Evans could handle intellectual ensemble drama.
And this decision, years before Captain America, would directly influence his next major non-Marvel role, Snowpiercer.
It's all connected.
He also entered the voice acting world, voicing Casey Jones in the successful animated TMNT in 2007. But the pursuit of serious dramatic credibility, it continued to lead him astray occasionally. The Loss of a Teardrop Diamond from 2009, based on a Tennessee Williams screenplay.
It was a critical failure, and his performance specifically was called catatonic, which suggests the material just wasn't a good fit for his energetic style.
The pattern is relentless, though. He was constantly seeking to expand his abilities, often landing roles in films that, due to script or execution, just got negative reviews.
Take Push in 2009, a sci-fi thriller filmed in Hong Kong. He was fully committed, he suffered bruises doing his own fight scenes, but the critical consensus was negative.
It left one frustrated critic to write this note of weary hope that Evans was. What was it?
One of these days he's going to make a good movie.
Brutal. It speaks to the incredible difficulty of achieving consistent critical acclaim when you're starting out as a young actor.
It does, but the very end of this exploratory decade brought two final important pre-cap comic book adaptations that really showed his range and his comedic timing.
Okay, so first in 2010 was The Losers.
Right. He played Captain Jake Jensen, a role he consciously chose because the character doesn't take things too seriously. He's the one that kind of loves life.
And he was praised for his breezy charm and comic relief. He was demonstrating his ability to be the light in an ensemble.
And then the film that initially underperformed but became this massive, undeniable cult classic.
Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Yes. From 2010, Evans portrayed Lucas Lee, one of Ramona Flowers' 7 evil exes.
An extraordinary performance. He plays Lucas Lee as this charismatic, aggressive, cartoonishly exaggerated antagonist.
A perfect character study in ego and bluster and over-the-top star power.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? Just as he was about to sign on to play the ultimate altruistic, selfless hero.
He gave one of his best early performances, playing the ultimate narcissistic jerk. It showed that the villain was always just beneath the surface, waiting.
Which brings us to the decision that fundamentally reshaped not only his life, but the entire landscape of modern cinema.
Captain America.
In 2010, he signed a multi-film deal with Marvel Studios to portray Steve Rogers. But as our sources confirm, this was anything but a straightforward, enthusiastic acceptance.
Oh, this was a moment of deep existential career anxiety for him. He initially turned down the part, multiple times, in fact.
Why? I mean, it seems like the role of a lifetime.
The commitment was terrifying. A multi-film, multi-year, multi-billion-dollar obligation that promised to completely eradicate his privacy and define his public identity forever.
And he was thinking about directing, too.
Exactly. He realized the potential loss of his directorial freedom and his personal anonymity was this massive, paralyzing burden.
The insight here is just so human. He only accepted after extensive consultation with Robert Downey Jr., the anchor of the MCU.
Who encouraged him by stressing the creative safety net that Marvel provided.
And crucially, Evans admitted that after signing the contract, he went to see a therapist to process the sheer magnitude of the change.
That detail about seeking professional help, it immediately elevates the story beyond simple Hollywood biography.
It really does.
It underscores the immense, almost psychological toll of signing on to a role that would fundamentally define a decade of his life and his global perception. It wasn't about accepting a job.
No.
It was about managing the mental and emotional fallout of becoming a global public institution.
And the success justified the risk. Immediately and massively. Captain America. The first Avenger in 2011 was a critical and commercial hit. It earned over $370 million worldwide.
And critics praised his handling of the character, noting his confident but subtle treatment of Steve Rogers. The film offered a fresh twist on 20th century history, rooting the hero in classic American idealism.
The following year, the stakes just exploded. The Avengers in 2012 was a global phenomenon. It grossed over $1.5 billion.
The trajectory was set. Evans was no longer just a leading man. He was a foundational pillar of the highest-grossing cinematic endeavor in human history.
But Phase 2, that's where he got the kind of nuanced character work that he had been seeking since his Fantastic Four days.
You're talking about The Winter Soldier.
Captain America. Winter Soldier 2014. A huge success. It grossed $714 million worldwide, but more importantly, it shifted the tone of the entire MCU.
It wasn't just a superhero film. It was a paranoid political spy thriller.
And that shift required a much deeper, more grounded performance from Evans. He prepared for months, undertaking 3 months of intense strength training, learning complex fight sequences.
You could see the serious dedication to the physicality of the role. And this shift in genre and complexity is exactly why Evans cites this film as his favorite Marvel installment.
His rationale is so insightful, it ties directly back to his preference for serious character studies.
Right.
He felt he finally started to understand Steve Rogers better in that narrative. He saw the character as a man out of time dealing with modern moral ambiguities.
And he also praised the collaboration with the directors, Anthony and Joe Russo. They understood how to deliver spectacle without sacrificing character depth.
So while the Shield was defining him globally, the financial security it provided allowed Evans to relentlessly pursue roles that intentionally carved out an identity outside the MCU.
He took on dark, challenging, and transformational roles in parallel.
Take 2012's The Iceman, the biographical film about the notorious murderer Richard Kuklinski.
Evans played the heavily disguised hitman Robert Pronge, a role that was originally meant for James Franco.
He completely transformed. He wore a heavy wig, grew a beard. The goal was clearly to be unrecognizable.
And the critics noticed. They applauded the effort. Reviewers complimented his versatile performance, specifically noting that the role was completely unlike his Captain America persona.
He was actively demonstrating that he had more to offer than just patriotic sincerity.
The other major non-Marvel masterpiece he anchored was Bong Joon-ho's critically acclaimed Snowpiercer in 2013.
A crucial point in the narrative. Director Bong was initially reluctant to cast Evans, this charismatic action star, in such a gritty, emotionally desperate role like Curtis.
And here's where his early flops paid dividends.
Right.
What swayed the acclaimed director of Parasite? It was seeing a sensitive and intense side in Evans's earlier, less commercial, more challenging work, specifically the intellectual sci-fi of Sunshine and the addiction drama Puncture.
That's a perfect demonstration of the value of creative risk, isn't it? He put in the work on films that didn't necessarily pay off commercially or critically at the time, but that footage proved his depth to demanding auteur directors later on.
And Snowpiercer, a modern classic about class warfare on a perpetually moving train, was universally praised. Salon magazine called the cast performances sensational.
This period also included the 2011 drama Puncture, where he played the real-life lawyer and drug addict Mike Weiss.
Another difficult, emotionally draining role, it premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it really cemented his dedication to playing flawed, complex anti-heroes. He proved he wasn't afraid to be ugly or messy on screen.
This intense creative exploration led to a massive professional declaration in 2014. Evans publicly stated that he might consider doing less acting so he could focus on directing.
And that ambition was the immediate beneficiary of his MCU security.
His directorial debut was Before We Go in 2014, a romantic comedy where he also starred and produced.
It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. Critics appreciated the effort. They noted it was a moderate effort, but it was elevated significantly by the tangible chemistry between the actors.
It showed a commitment to a smaller, more intimate form of storytelling, so far removed from the VFX spectacle of Marvel.
This sustained period of duality, it culminated in the financial zenith of the MCU's Phase 3. We're talking Avengers, Age of Ultron in 2015, and Captain America, Civil War in 2016.
Just gargantuan box office hits. Collectively, they grossed over $2.5 billion worldwide.
And the sheer financial scale of his commitment is staggering. The source confirms his reported salary for Civil War alone was $15 million.
That isn't just money, it's freedom.
Exactly. That kind of financial security granted him the ultimate artistic license to pursue whatever stage roles, political ventures, or personal passion projects he desired in the next phase of his career.
So after the sustained global success of Phase 3, we reach the emotional conclusion of his primary commitment to Steve Rogers.
Infinity War and Endgame. The epic sequels from 2018 and 2019, again directed by the Russo brothers.
The level of operational secrecy surrounding these films was legendary. It's almost absurd in retrospect.
Oh, totally. The sources reveal that Evans and Scarlett Johansson, two of the biggest stars on the planet, had to actively fight to get physical paper scripts.
You're kidding.
Nope. The default was receiving just a few pages or bits of the script on an encrypted iPad.
That story really drives home the financial and cultural stakes involved. It wasn't just a movie script. It was perhaps the most valuable piece of intellectual property in Hollywood history at the time.
For sure. That intense security underscores the monumental scope of a film that would go on to gross $2.7 billion worldwide.
The emotional experience of concluding this 10-year chapter was deeply felt by Evans. He wrapped filming Endgame in October 2018.
And he described the experience as deeply moving. He said he spent the last month letting himself be a little overwhelmed and a little nostalgic and grateful.
And on the very last day,
he admitted, "I was bawling. It was an emotional divorce from the role that had defined his entire adulthood."
But the moment Captain America said goodbye, Evans immediately executed this brilliant pivot back toward the true origins of his craft.
The stage.
The stage. In 2018, he made his Broadway debut in the play Lobby Hero, directed by Trip Coleman.
And the transition was a spectacular success. It silenced any critics who might have suggested he was only a film actor.
He received a Drama League Award nomination. He won a Broadway.com Audience Award for Favorite Featured Actor.
And the New York Times celebrated it as a terrific Broadway debut. They praised his stage presence, specifically as a marvel of smooth calculation and bluster.
It proved that the foundations he laid in musical theater in suburban Massachusetts, they weren't just still strong.
They were perfectly honed for serious dramatic work.
Following the stage work, He strategically embraced a complete 180 from the sincerity of Steve Rogers.
Right. He played the spoiled, cheerfully entitled villain Ransom Drysdale in Rian Johnson's mystery smash hit Knives Out.
That role was a masterstroke of post-franchise career management.
100%. The film was critically acclaimed and grossed $309 million worldwide. And his performance was lauded precisely because it subverted the heroic image he had cultivated for a decade.
Linda Holmes of NPR, she highlighted that it was a special treat to see him tear right into this rich brat bit, both preternaturally handsome and cheerfully obnoxious. A one-man cable-knit charm offensive.
A one-man cable-knit charm offensive. That's perfect. It demonstrated that post-Captain America, he had the freedom to be purely antagonistic and stylishly awful. He could flex the ego that his philosophical leanings sought to quiet.
Post-Endgame, Evans quickly expanded into the streaming landscape, seeking new, long-form opportunities. Though the results, they've been mixed.
The roller coaster didn't stop, no. The Red Sea Diving Resort in 2019 saw him play an Israeli Mossad agent for Netflix. Reviewers noted weaknesses in the film's structure and pacing.
But they complimented his performance.
Generally, yeah. They said he delivered a sincere performance.
He found greater critical success in the miniseries format, with the 2020 Apple TV Plus crime drama Defending Jacob.
He played an assistant district attorney whose son is accused of murder. This offered him the opportunity for sustained, complex, emotional performance.
And he nailed it. The Hollywood Reporter praised him for conveying the right measure of empathy and fear as the anguished father. He was leveraging his inherent likability for emotional drama.
He also maintained his blockbuster profile with a cameo in Adam McKay's ensemble Netflix comedy Don't Look Up.
And then he reunited with his Avengers directors, the Russo brothers, for the big-budget action film The Gray Man in 2022.
That film generated strong viewership on Netflix, but the reviews were pretty mixed.
The mixed critical reception here, it highlights the difficulty of maintaining critical success in the algorithm-driven streaming action space when you don't have the protective framework of the MCU.
Exactly. And the subsequent years saw some notable critical setbacks, proving the volatility of his post-franchise phase.
After voicing Buzz Lightyear in the Pixar animation Lightyear, he starred opposite Ana de Armas in the action comedy Ghosted.
And the crime drama Pain Hustlers, both from 2023, both received poor reviews.
In fact, Ghosted unfortunately earned him a nomination for Worst Actor at the Golden Raspberry Awards.
Yeah, ouch. It underscores the immense challenge actors face in transitioning out of a globally protected, critically adored franchise and reestablishing their identity.
Despite the official farewell to his signature role, the Marvel legacy continues to weave through his work.
Both nostalgically and financially. He reprised his beloved villain role as Lucas Lee in the animated television series Scott Pilgrim Takes Off,
confirming the cult status of that performance.
And he also made a surprise cameo as his first Marvel character, Johnny Storm the Human Torch, in Deadpool and Wolverine in 2024.
And this brings us right up to the present moment, proving that the Captain America chapter is far from closed.
Not at all. In December 2025, it was confirmed that he will officially reprise the role of Steve Rogers in Avengers. Doomsday, scheduled for release in 2026.
So the initial anxiety, the therapy, the desire for freedom.
All temporarily set aside, perhaps, for the compelling combination of financial reward and the pull of the character he spent a decade perfecting.
The world's highest-grossing actor is returning to the uniform that defined him,
confirming that the duality is ongoing and permanent.
We've tracked the actor, the director, the villain, and the hero, and this ongoing push and pull of those identities. Now we have to examine the man behind these massive public commitments,
especially concerning his personal life and philosophies.
There have been significant grounding developments in the last few years. Most importantly, he married Portuguese actress Alba Baptista.
In a private at-home ceremony on Cape Cod, Massachusetts on September 9, 2023.
And our source confirms that the couple recently welcomed their first child, a daughter, in October of 2025.
This emphasis on private, grounded, local milestones, getting married quietly on Cape Cod, raising a family, it stands in sharp contrast to the global, explosive nature of his professional work.
It suggests a very deliberate attempt to maintain a private, protected sphere.
Absolutely. And on the lighter side of celebrity validation, in 2022, he received the ultimate traditional validation of Hollywood stardom.
He was named People magazine's sexiest man alive.
Of course. He is also famously a devoted, vocal New England Patriots fan, having narrated 2 separate America's Game documentary series about them. His New England roots run deep.
And of course there is Dodger, his beloved rescue dog.
You can't forget Dodger.
He adopted Dodger from a local animal shelter in 2015 while filming Gifted, and the dog has become this stable, endearing, and very public part of his image.
He's all over his social media. It provides an immediate point of emotional connection and relatability for his massive fan base.
But the most revealing insight into his inner world, and the true foundation for the provocative thought we'll end on, it comes from his philosophical and spiritual beliefs.
He identifies generally with Eastern philosophies, explicitly mentioning Taoism and Buddhism.
Now, this is crucial. He consciously avoids labeling himself strictly as a Buddhist.
Right. He says he follows the ideas more generally, avoiding what he calls the dogma that separates these religions.
It shows a pragmatic, self-directed approach to spirituality. He's seeking principles that apply to his chaotic life, rather than adhering to strict institutional rules.
And those principles are in direct conflict with his profession. His philosophy focuses on three core elements.
Which are?
Maintaining a certain level of presence, acknowledging that your ego is probably not your friend, and refusing to be ruled by what has happened or what will happen.
Let's focus on that concept of presence and anti-ego. In Taoism, presence involves living in the moment, free from the anxieties of the future like box office results or career trajectory.
Or the regrets of the past, those terrible early films.
And acknowledging the ego is not your friend, that's the core of this spiritual dedication.
This is profound commitment to self-diminishment for someone who works in an industry built entirely on outward projection, future box office calculations, and leveraging past performance to secure current roles.
His career requires a massive, aggressive ego to succeed.
While his personal philosophy requires him to quiet that exact force, this isn't just some superficial interest for him. He has a tattoo of a quote from spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, whom he later interviewed on Oprah's book club.
The contradiction is just built into his life.
It is.
Before we delve deeper into that duality, we should note his substantial philanthropic efforts, many of which are, again, tied to his New England roots.
He is a major, consistent supporter of Christopher's Haven, a charity that provides housing for families affected by childhood cancer.
And his charitable efforts have been creative and highly publicized. He uses his platform effectively.
For sure. In 2015, he participated in that viral Super Bowl bet with his co-star Chris Pratt, which ultimately raised $27,000 for both Christopher's Haven and Seattle Children's Hospital. He leveraged celebrity rivalry for positive change.
He also organized a large virtual fundraiser involving his Avengers co-stars in May 2020. It was to benefit organizations fighting hunger, like Feeding America and Meals on Wheels.
And he's competitive for a good cause. In a charity fantasy football tournament with his co-stars, he placed third and won $80,000 for Christopher's Haven.
Finally, we must look at his public political stances, which link directly back to his uncle's political lineage.
Right, and our directive is to report impartially on the views he has publicly affirmed. He has historically been a strong and vocal proponent of progressive social and civic engagement.
For example, back in 2012, he affirmed his unwavering support for same-sex marriage. He stated clearly and prophetically, in 10 years we'll be ashamed that this was an issue.
In 2016, he publicly supported the enforcement of Massachusetts' ban on assault weapons, weighing in on a highly charged public policy debate.
In terms of presidential politics, he endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016 and participated in a virtual fundraising event for Joe Biden in 2020.
He was also a prominent, outspoken critic of the previous administration. He uses his voice clearly and without ambiguity when he feels a civic issue is paramount.
He was particularly passionate about women's reproductive rights, criticizing Alabama's Human Life Protection Act in 2019 as absolutely unbelievable.
And he warned the public, if you're not worried about Roe v. Wade, you're not paying attention.
But perhaps his most unique and most Steve Rogers-esque contribution to the political landscape is his organization, A Starting Point,
which launched in July 2020. This platform is an attempt to mitigate partisan misinformation by publishing short, policy-focused interviews with American elected officials.
The ambitious goal of the entire initiative, it's predicated on a commitment to presenting both the Democratic and Republican point of view on dozens of issues across the political landscape.
It's an attempt by a global celebrity to foster bipartisan understanding and informational transparency. He's providing direct, unfiltered voices of elected officials.
It's a complex project. It risks being critiqued as naive idealism, maybe.
It does, yet it is a sincere, concrete attempt to bridge the deep partisan divides in American civic life, using his massive platform to achieve a kind of unity.
In many ways, a starting point is the clearest real-world manifestation of the idealistic, unifying spirit of Captain America that he has internalized over the last decade.
I think you're right.
So if we synthesize this extraordinary journey, from the Mystery Date board game to $11.4 billion, what does it mean for our understanding of Chris Evans?
It means his career is a dynamic portrait of creative duality and financial empowerment. He navigated a decade of genre exploration, including films he himself labeled terrible,
Right.
to eventually anchoring the highest-grossing film franchise in history. And the conclusion of that action arc was immediately followed by a sophisticated pivot to critically acclaimed, intense stage work like Lobby Hero.
And then the ultimate antagonistic, ego-driven film role in Knives Out.
He is a person who lives defined by these compelling contradictions. A global action star who is simultaneously dedicated to Eastern philosophy, focused on quiet presence and minimizing the self.
He's a new husband and father, and yet he dedicates substantial time and capital to being a serious political activist, attempting to foster bipartisan understanding through his platform, A Starting Point.
And the relevance for you, the learner, is the insight into how defining success grants true freedom. Evans shows that once you achieve immense monolithic success, the kind that gives you an identity like Captain America, that success creates the financial freedom and the cultural mandate to seek out roles and projects that fundamentally challenge that established image. He uses his platform not just for profit, but as a megaphone for his deepest personal convictions, whether they're philosophical or political.
It seems like Evans is constantly searching for balance. The quiet grounding behind the noise, the self-effacement behind the sexiest man alive title, and the billion-dollar brand.
And that raises the most important question, one worth mulling over long after this deep dive ends. Evans' deeply held philosophical focus, aligned with Taoism and Buddhism, is on quiet presence, rejecting the ego and refusing to be ruled by past or future events.
But his career still demands the ultimate public expression of self, maintaining and promoting a multi-billion-dollar brand, including the explosive spectacle of the confirmed MCU return and Steve Rogers in 2026.
So how does this actor truly reconcile the necessity of sustaining that immense public persona and ego, the force required to keep the global blockbuster machine running, and earn that $15 million salary?
With his deep personal dedication to principles that inherently seek to quiet the brain and diminish the self, is the blockbuster work the necessary burden he accepts to fund the quieter, more meaningful work? Or is it the ultimate tension between the Captain America brand and the man who fundamentally seeks peace?